Guys hear me?
There we go. Okay, this is the October 9th meeting of the Environmental Advisory Council. We have a relatively short agenda for tonight. The first two items are to approve minutes from the last two meetings, and I think we didn't approve the minutes from May, so we have to approve the minutes from the May 8th meeting and the July 9th meeting. So all in favor of approving the minutes from May 8th?
In favor.
Approved. And all in favor of approving the minutes from July 9th?
Aye.
Okay. So both of those are approved. So the main thing we have to discuss tonight is this draft memo to public health and safety.
Frozen.
Can you hear us, Lee? Can you hear us, Miriam?
Wait a minute. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Do you guys hear there's a dishwasher going in the background? Do you hear a lot of background noise or no? No.
I'll just summarize this briefly. I think everyone's had a chance to look at the draft memo now, and I just want to put it in context of what Lower Merion Township is doing to think about that as well. This is a topic that the EAC has been discussing for some time now. We've gotten input from the community. We've talked about it at our meeting. We talked about public works. The memo summarizes those activities, gives some background on it, talks about the environmental and health impacts of gas-powered leaf blowers and gas-powered equipment more generally. Talks about electric equipment and other approaches for landscaping, and then actions in other municipalities. And so most of this just summarizes the background and gives public health and safety sort of the details of what we've discussed and learned as we've been studying this topic. Part of the reason we wanted to discuss this memo tonight is that Lower Merion Township Sustainability Manager and their staff more generally are proposing an ordinance for the township that would phase out the use of gas-powered leaf blowers. Now, the initial version of that was to do a seasonal use restriction. So the idea would be that you could continue using gas-powered leaf blowers in the spring and the fall, and the specific dates, the months of the year are laid out in the memo there. And it would be prohibited in the summer and winter, essentially. And there's various reasons why they went with that approach. They had to do with what the township staff thought that they could do for their municipal operations, different needs in summer and winter versus spring and fall, and so on. Last night at the Lower Merion Sustainability Committee meeting, they discussed this and they voted on agreeing to advertise the proposed ordinance with some modifications. And the key modifications that I think are relevant to us to discuss here are to include eventually what will be a year-round phase-out of gas-powered leaf blowers. So basically there'll be three phases in the way that they have this structured right now. So there'll be those initial seasonal restrictions starting next year. This will start in May 2026 if the commissioners pass something this fall. And then 2 years from that point, there'd be additional restriction on prohibiting the use of gas-powered leaf blowers in the spring. And then in 3 years, in 2029, it would be a year-round restriction. So it's kind of this phased-in approach.
Mm-hmm.
That eventual getting to the point of having a year-round restriction on gas-powered leaf blowers actually fits with what we had discussed way back when we were talking about this last year, and we had that sample ordinance from Penn Environment that we were looking at, and we thought to remove the seasonal use restriction because all the environmental health impacts are year-round. So when I modified the recommendations in the memo to sort of, I think we can unmute yourself if you want to say anything. I adjusted the recommendations in the memo to kind of line up with that. So I think the key things for us to think about here, our role as the EAC is to provide the best recommendation from an environmental standpoint that we can. I think that is to minimize the use of gas powered leaf blowers and gas powered landscaping equipment more generally, just given the environmental and health impacts. The Lower Merion ordinance is just focused on leaf blowers for right now. And so we can think about, whether we want to recommend just leaf blowers or all gas powered equipment. And then sort of from a practicality standpoint, how things are, aligning sort of what the rules are between Lower Merion and Narberth. So given all that, the way the draft memo is right now, it has a main recommendation that's similar to what we had talked about in the EAC last year, which is to phase out gas-powered landscaping equipment over a 2-year period as a year-round restriction. There's also in the memo, you'll see this alternative recommendation if that's not deemed to be feasible for whatever reason, that they adopt an ordinance mirroring what Lower Merion Township is doing that starts with seasonal restrictions and then phases out further and further till you get to year-round restrictions, specifically for leaf blowers. If that's what the ordinance. So that's where the memo stands. That's kind of the background on it. And it's open for discussion, what everyone thinks.
I was just going to throw this out as an idea. The heavy-duty leaf blowers are really useful in the spring for your first cleanup after winter. You've had the snow. All the leaves that are left are kind of attached to the ground or in the gutter or wherever. And as we have a Narberth cleanup week, I'm wondering if there's it would be an idea to have a 2-week period or something like that where people could use the higher power gas blowers to do an initial cleanout from the winter. And then I'm not sure if you want to replicate that for the autumn.
I think that, so the seasonal restriction schedule that Lower Merion is considering, I think implements that. And so they'd be allowed from March 1st to May 1st, and then from October 1st to January 1st.
That's fine. I was restricted.
Yeah.
But
and eventually
take my recommendation and double it, and that's usually more reasonable.
And eventually, that's just the initial approach, right? Yeah. And I think one of the things that we've talked about in our group, and we've heard from others, is to consider sort of the time frame for adoption of, for landscapers and homeowners, individuals, to switch from using gas-powered equipment to electric equipment. And that's why I think having this kind of phased-in approach makes it more feasible. But I think the seasonal restrictions that they're considering to start next year would accomplish just what you're describing.
I saw those. They were just a little longer, and I wasn't sure about the period. So, no, I'm fine with that.
So, in like play it.
Before
you so the only thing that we have to do is we hit on
Hello?
Lee, we can hear you.
Me?
Yes, hello. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Did you want to weigh in?
I'm in agreement with whatever was in that memo. I agree with all the provisions that were in the memo that Joe had drafted. Hello.
Yep. Thanks, Lee.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time. Sorry.
That's okay. Thanks,
Yeah.
Lee. I'll just be on mute for now. Other thoughts? And thanks to everyone else who gave input on the memo too.
Oh, the other one I had was a late thought that I sent to you, Joe, was about a force majeure condition that if there's severe weather, emergency conditions, in Narberth, no power, and there has to be cleanup, that there'd be consideration of a force majeure condition would be that you could use other power equipment to clean up the neighborhoods, et cetera, from debris, what have you. There'd be a provision that may be already assumed in bylaws, but I didn't know if that would make sense to include in
I have to go back and look, we were working, the template ordinance we were working from before was the one that, Penn Environment had as a template to start. I don't remember if that provision was in there. And I don't remember if it's in Lower Merion's. I do know that their sustainability committee yesterday, they talked about things like snow emergencies and creating exceptions for things like that.
Yeah.
So we can look at those, and if those are already in, like, for example, Lower Merion's proposed ordinance, then it would line up with that. Do you think that's something that would be significant enough that we would want to deviate from Lower Merion's rules if they didn't have it in there?
I would just include, you could include force majeure, which is an act of God. So it'd be an extreme condition, and then it could be up to the borough to decide whether it
So we could include in the
is.
memo, that, that the public health and safety to include that as an exception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
can make that
it's just,
modification.
it's out of bounds condition, so.
You
You didn't charge up your equipment.
Right.
You can't plug it in because of the power outage. And so you're kind of stuck with what you can do to clean things out. Now, for leaf blowers, it's not going to be a big deal, but as we go on with other equipment, it would be.
do you want to, if you could add some text to the memo to that effect, or send me something I can stick in just to
Okay.
get that in general terms?
Yeah, I think it
that's
would be
fine.
a standard 2 or 3 line.
Yeah,
And then it would just be who determines
because
if that condition
Yeah.
exists.
right now at this stage, at least in this memo, we're just trying to provide the background technical analysis. We're not doing the wording on the ordinance or
Yeah.
anything. But we can make a note that that council might consider exceptions for various storms or other events. Whether that be
I think there, you probably field a couple questions about that. Are there exceptions to the rule?
Mhm.
And a force majeure mention would pretty much address most considerations.
I'll see if it's in either the template ordinance we're looking at or the Lower Merion one already. And then either way, we can add that to the memo.
Yeah.
So I just see a couple things, nothing major. The main versus alternative recommendation conflict. So we have
Yeah.
clarify whether it's a 2-year phase out, which applies to leaf blowers or to all equipment.
So I think when we were, and that's, as we discussed at the EAC, we were talking about it in terms of all equipment. Now, the Lower Merion ordinance is only specifically looking at leaf blowers,
Right,
not
right.
looking at weed whackers, lawnmowers, anything like that.
Mhm.
So that's a question. Do we want to recommend only to phase out gas powered leaf blowers, or do we want to recommend that they phase out all of these 2-stroke engines essentially? I think from an environmental standpoint, it's a similar
Well,
impact
yeah,
to leaf blower.
we know what we want.
Yeah. So I would say just from an environmental standpoint, it applies equally to all of these, just in terms of that they want the recommendation from the EAC of what's the best environmental thing to do. There's other factors that, of course, the council will have to consider, but I don't see a reason from an environmental standpoint to restrict this only to leaf blowers. The same aspects of air pollution and health issues and all these other things apply to other types of equipment as well. So I would keep it broad.
I like having just making it clear. Maybe we could just put the word all, like at the very, I'm just looking at the very bottom
Yeah.
of the thing. All gas powered landscaping equipment. And like, and then, alternative is just leaf blowers. But I guess the one, like, and then the council can decide, are they going to prioritize being in alignment with Lower Merion, or are they going to prioritize the environmental stuff? I guess the one other thing that I just wonder, it's not to say it would be any change in the wording. Just the one other consideration that I'm trying to think of is like, practically speaking, I imagine it would take most landscaping companies longer to phase out their lawnmower, their ride-on electric gas
Right.
mower. And from what I've heard, like the hedge trimmers, like electric hedge trimmers are pretty good. Like they're pretty on par. the leaf blowers a little, the whole like heavy wet leaf, certain surfaces thing. According to the people at my work, where like they're starting to try out electric stuff, but they're not like very knowledgeable and they're a little skeptical and stuff. They're like, oh my God, we're gonna have to totally figure out the whole battery thing, and you got to have the batteries be all from the same company so that they're compatible. Like, I guess I'm just wondering, and I don't have an answer in my head, whether for the main recommendation, if we should say something like, you know,
Yeah.
2 years for the hedge trimmers and the leaf blowers, and I can't think if there's any other like lighter weight thing, and then like 3 years or 4 years for the lawn mowers, because the mom and pop ones like that I've talked to have said like, oh yeah, they have a 10-year lifespan and I just bought a new one or whatever.
Do you think it would work? I think that's a good point. Would it work rather than getting into a list of each individual piece of equipment, maybe distinguishing leaf blowers from other equipment, since leaf blowers have been the focus of a lot of the discussions. And that's the focus also of what Laura Marion is looking at. To
Yeah.
maybe suggest to recommend a 2-year phase out for leaf blowers and then a phase out for other types of equipment based on an appropriate time frame given the lifespan and
Right. Yeah, the average lifespan for the gas powered one. I don't feel like so strongly about it. It's just a consideration. I just know from the perspective of landscaping professionals, like it'll be like a really heavy lift for the lawnmower, but it's also good to get people to start considering not, so it's kind of like striking that balance.
Yeah, it's all striking a balance, and I think that the way we have the memo worded tries to do that with making it clear that we're trying to provide the best recommendation from a health standpoint.
Yes.
So I think that if we could edit that text to specifically talk about a 2-year phase out period for leaf blowers, since that's been the main focus, and then add a phase out period for other equipment as appropriate for the lifespan of that equipment.
Okay, do you want me to just write it into the text right now, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so 2-year phase out period for gas powered leaf blowers and an appropriate phase out period for other gas powered landscaping equipment based upon the average lifespan.
I think that's fine. I think you could even just leave it open-ended. I mean, there's various factors they could consider that.
Oh, okay, maybe I'll just say like e.g.
That works. That's good.
Okay.
When would there be a time frame for when we would provide the guidance for the second part?
Which part?
Part being non-leaf gas leaf blower. We say based on the.
We could look into it. Yeah, I mean, we have to think about again, we come back to sort of what do we want to, as a VAC, if our role is to say, here's the best thing to do from an environmental standpoint, well, the sooner the better. Right. There are other practical considerations like lifespan of equipment, the cost of the equipment,
Yeah.
What types of equipment are in more mature stages of doing this? For public works, they use all electric equipment for all of them already, right? And so, and these considerations will be different if you're talking about individuals versus landscaping companies, all kinds of things like that too. So, I don't know that we can certainly look into that, but I don't have the answers to all that. I don't think we do right now.
Right. I agree that we could just do the memo, and then I'm sure there'll be some kinds of questions. I do feel like I've become more aware, thinking if I were a council member, not from the environmental impact part, but just the like feasibility and, it really does seem to me, I just haven't seen any homeowners using gas powered equipment for a long time, so I think it seems like it's getting very bifurcated between what the landscape professionals use versus the.
Yeah, I think at this stage we don't really need to get into it. I think the key is to give them sort of the background information that we have at the moment.
Sure,
They
that
can
sounds good.
decide if they want to move forward to
Yeah,
hear what Lower Merion is doing. So I
Yeah.
think ultimately, both municipalities probably will want to see some sort of alignment between the two of them in whatever form to send them.
Mhm. Right, with Narberth liking to kind of push the envelope more, but if this is about like commercial, they may be less inclined to do that for this because it involves all these businesses that operate in both, as opposed to like individual, you know, stationary commercial establishments or individual households.
Okay.
I think it looks great. I agree with Lee and others. And we would just take out that part about LMT is considering an ordinance. We just remove that.
Which part?
It's, sorry,
No,
it's
no,
this,
that was some other text that was, I thought it was already included. That was, no, not cutting that part. There's text in the comment that was referring to.
oh, I see, a different
That would
thing.
keep the part about what Lower Marion's doing, because that gives.
Okay, but this is up to date. This accurately describes what they decided at their meeting last
That's
night.
up to date as of, yep, what they decided last night, correct?
Okay,
I thought of one other thing.
Yeah.
From my background is that, Narberth is surrounded by Lower Merion. So if we don't phase out on the same schedule, if we're late, our air quality is impacting Lower Merion, which is trying to remedy their situation. So it's not just the total emissions, it's actually time in situ emissions. So are particularly flying into Lower Merion and impacting that population, and maybe an interested party actually.
Yeah.
So maybe the consistency with their guidance would be good.
Yeah.
Unless we're going to be more stringent.
Yeah, I think to the extent that we can be consistent across both, that will
Yeah.
simplify things, right? But we also want to make sure that we're giving them the best recommendation based on the environmental health impacts.
Yeah.
So I think having both sets of recommendations in here for them to consider, I think that will convey that to them. Okay, Lee was having some connection issues. He messaged me. He's going to try and rejoin. I can add a sentence or two, Rob, or you can send me some text to add. Right at other point, but with that addition, all in favor of approving the memo, sending to public health and safety.
Aye, here, here.
Great.
am I supposed to vote? I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, maybe I'll abstain, although I can voice my
Fine.
support for the draft.
Lee messaged me his support. He's going to try and, oh, there he is. Hi, Lee, perfect timing. So, we just want to know if you approve of the memo and sending it to public health and safety.
I think he's muted.
So should we do something?
We can hear you, Lee.
Okay, I think I can hear something.
Yeah, we just want to know if you approve the memo. To send to
Okay,
public health and
yes,
safety.
I approve the memo
Great, thank you.
you're very welcome. Thank you guys so much.
Lee, you had an item on the agenda about the budget, but I don't have any information about that.
Yeah, I know. We'll have to follow up on that.
Okay,
Okay, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, thanks
Get
everyone.
out.
I will,
Get me out.
Get out. Safety. The only other item on the agenda was the budget, but I know Lee had to go. And I don't have information on it. The borough's beginning the 2026 budget process. If you guys have items on your wish list, so to speak, of things you'd like that would support the ACED activities for 2026, let Lee and me know, and we can put together a request to Maggie for that. I'm good. Any other topics to discuss? Miriam, did you want to mention Anything with CCA?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I can't remember if we forwarded the email to everybody in the EAC. I can do that. But basically they're saying that they're gonna, pending like litigation and appeals to the Commonwealth Court to allow the CCA as an opt-out thing, which is always what we wanted. They're gonna form an exploration committee, that they're calling Pepsi, Pennsylvania Electric Plan Cooperative, to try to form an opt-in renewable energy program. So it's, there's many questions like, can you get a good rate? And, is this different than the energy co-op and all kinds of stuff that we've raised before? But the first meeting will be on October 23rd. If I can't go, I'll let everyone know and see if there's someone else who could, if I'm like teaching or, have something, but because it's, they haven't set the time yet.
That sounds good.
Okay.
I guess question that I would love to hear from that group is if this is gonna be an opt-in model, does that allow other types of municipalities to participate, could townships and cities?
Right. Yeah. Good question. So, I mean, I would say if you are able to and you just want to email Dennis, like he may not have an answer yet, but I would think that opt-in, it could be anyone, and there are all these township members who wish they could participate in the opt-out one, so,
Okay, I'll reach out.
yeah. Oh, he did give a background document. I'm just gonna, I'll make sure to forward this with the background documents to everybody, but that's it so far for the CCA.
And then beekeeping?
Yeah, it's just that I ran into Chris Ontel, the beekeeper, and I explained the situation as I understood it, which is that, Brian had drafted an ordinance and we had invited Chris to come to our meeting, but he never can on Thursday. He has some work commitment or something. He can never come on Thursdays. But I explained that Lee had reached out to Jean to say, hey, we wanted to like send you guys a memo and sample ordinance. And she was like, we're maxed out. We're busy. We can't deal with this right now. So what I like kind of informally suggested to Chris is that as as Narberth resident and business owner, he could, if he wanted to, he could just kind of meet at a non-Thursday time with any member of the council who was willing and interested to meet with him kind of one-on-one to explain anything else that he has or to kind of look over sample ordinance.
Yeah.
For example, with Brian.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Okay, so I was like, I gave him our emails and I was like, if you want to reach out and see if they're available, or because he and I had already, met one-on-one. And then I also suggested, it's totally legit for any borough resident or business owner to reach out to the council members and just say, hey, this is an issue for me. Like, I'd like you to prioritize this. And then they can say no, So I just thought, and then he realized like he knew Fred and, so I just told him, I thought if he felt very strongly that he needed more support, and he would like wanted to elevate it, that was probably the way to go. Given that Jean was like, we can't, our agenda is maxed out for the next few months. So that's kind of, that's what I said. And then I think he conveyed to me that his main concern is just that as he's still looking for households, to, be sites for his hives. And I think he was concerned that if there were complaints about the setback not being enough or, anything like that, he's like, well, there's no guidance right now. So I think his main like kind of thought was like, well, I'll see if I can get the guidance kind of established before I start expanding my hives. But if the council doesn't, at the moment, it can't prioritize that among their considerations, he just wants to make sure he won't get dinged for,
Do we have some, is there like a sample ordinance?
Brian used it to.
Oh, you have
It's
it.
in the,
Okay.
it's in the file. It's under beekeeping.
Oh, okay, great.
I didn't know, I guess I just wasn't sure. I didn't want to share, Brian, what you wrote. Like,
Free to, I don't care.
yeah, okay, so I thought he hasn't reached out to you. It was like Saturday I ran into him at shift. But yeah, I wasn't sure like if there was any particular process to follow since it was like technically an EAC draft. I thought it might be best if you and he kind of met one-on-one, he could just kind of look over and kind of informally
Oh,
share. Does
That
that?
would be great. That
Yeah.
sounds-
Okay.
And then I know that, we talked about this back in July. Parks and Rec was interested in pollinator-friendly landscapes and insect spraying, which we talked about before too, and that kind of ties in with this, so.
Mhm.
If it ends up being relevant, Brian, when you talk with Chris, I can try and get you connected with whoever on Parks
Sure.
and Rec is interested in that too, and that might be helpful to
That'd be great.
what they're thinking about too.
One more thing that I like is just a consideration that it doesn't, well, so I have learned slowly that European honeybees actually like compete with native pollinators and are not, there are definitely some people looking out for ecosystems in the mid-Atlantic who are down on honeybees as like, competitors. So it's not to say that we like I totally
Yeah.
support all of it. It's just to kind of be aware that there are like, there's pros and cons, with
Yeah,
the
well, there's different, yeah, there's overlap, but they don't all share the same goals necessarily.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and also there are some people who are concerned that like honeybees are detrimental to like local ecosystems in a way that is kind of, counterintuitive until like you learn the specifics. So it's just kind of something to take, I don't know. It's just, I was like, well, it's one little element in the discussion. I like the idea of local beekeeping personally. I'm like in favor of it, but I also know that it's not like all bees are the same, basically, or all pollinators are the same.
I'm just gonna ask, is there an expert at like Penn State
Sure.
that could be used to, it's like Snopes for bees. Where we can find out what the real answer is and just go with what the science is, and avoid if it's European or basic honey, American honeybees or whatever.
I think, yeah, I'm sure, I think
And
we
get
should
that out of the way ahead
research
of time.
that. Yeah, I would say, Brian, if you want to look into that, I don't know the answer to the question, but worth looking into so that we know the answer. I think that's always good.
Maybe there's one at one of the colleges around here.
I can't put anything in the chat, but there's a link. I mean, I have an article. It's just NPR. Honeybees help farmers, but they don't help the environment. I don't think it's a problem for us to support honeybees and also recommend supporting native bees because these are European honeybees, so that make the honey. So I don't think anyone argues that European honeybees are native. It's just for us to be aware, just so we know, like,
Yeah.
you know,
To add levity, are UK honeybees considered European or are they? Okay.
after Brexit, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Miriam and Brian. Anything else, any other business? Okay, great. We have no one from the public here for public comment, so that concludes the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
You want to vote now?